Hello Tony, this is Jessica, the Lefty Knitter with KnitChats. Let's go ahead and work through 3 repeats of your pattern that you've chosen. You have chosen a perfect pattern for beginner because it has 2 rows over and over and over, and it teaches you so many different stitches. This will give you the perfect foundation for anything you want to knit in the future. The first thing I want to discuss is I kind of broke it down so that there are 13 stitches in each repeat. So after you have finished a repeat, what you're going to want to do is place a stitch marker for every repeat. So you'll have 13 stitches between stitch markers. What this is going to do for you is when you get to the end of your 13 stitches, if you have not been able to finish a full repeat of your chart, then you know you have a mistake within that same repeat, and then you can just tink back and fix it. It breaks it down into smaller chunks so that you don't get to the end of the row and figure out that you've gone off pattern somehow. Maybe you've sat it down, or just maybe you worked something incorrectly, and now you have 195 stitches to figure out what has happened. But if you have 13 stitches at a time, you can fix it instantaneously. I've learned the hard way. I don't want the same for you. You don't have to have dedicated stitch markers the way I do. You are welcome to use like hair rubber bands, or they have the teeth bands for braces. I don't recommend clear, and I don't recommend using the same exact color you're knitting with, because you may fail to see it. You may accidentally knit it into your work, and then you really do have to rip back to get that out of your work. There's no way to get it out. So, well, I guess you could cut them as long as you're not using these, or they're metal. I have cast on 39 stitches for 3 repeats, and I've already shot this video once, so you're not going to see my cast on. The first thing you're going to notice if you're following along in your pattern, and I hope you are, we have a knit 2 together. So what this means is, instead of, oops, I'm a lefty, and I was lefty knitting because that's my natural. Okay, so what this means is, instead of just regular knitting, like 1 stitch, you're going to just simply knit 2 stitches together. Go around the back of the needle, pull your loop through, and pull it off your needle. All right, the next part says to knit 3 stitches, so that's what we're going to go ahead and do. If I seem a little awkward, it's because I really am. I'm knitting backward. I've had to do it a number of times. Majority of the people I teach are right-handed, including my own children. So, okay, so we come to the increase. As we talked about in the previous video, the increase is a KFB, or knit front and back. So for this stitch, we are going to knit the stitch as usual, but instead of dropping it off the needle, we are going to go behind this front loop here, behind, let me see if I can show you, in between, through that back loop of the same stitch, and then go wrap your yarn. So now you see we have 2 stitches for that 1 stitch. And then we just slip that stitch off the needle. And let's do this again. Knit front, and I like to go in between. It's actually easier. I am using, what are these needles? I forget. Cubics, Knitter's Pride Cubics. They're actually square needles. It makes the KFB easier, I think. Okay, so now we have 2 stitches for that 1 stitch. All right, and we knit 4. And now we've come to the decrease. And the decrease says that we slip the next 2 stitches knitwise, 1 at a time to the right needle. So to slip knitwise is to slip as if you're going to knit, but you don't knit. And now the next step is to insert the tip of the left needle into the front of the stitches, and by that it means this way, and to knit them together. So I'm going to wrap my yarn and pull it through. In the first video it fought me really hard, and this one not so much. That was nice. It made me look like a pro. And as you see, we have come to the end of our pattern repeat in that row, and I've also come to my stitch marker. So I'm going to slip it to the other needle. You can use the needle to slip it too, but to place your first stitch marker, you just place it on the needle and then you keep knitting. So we're going to knit 2 together again. Maybe. And then we're going to knit 3. All right, and then we're going to do the increase twice again, the knit front back. So knit in the front. Don't pull that off your needle yet, and knit into the back. Okay, see that? The back. Okay, again, knit front. Don't pull it off the needle yet. Knit back. And then we knit 4. And now we have the decrease. For the decrease, we do an SSK, slip it knitwise, slip another one knitwise, insert the needle into the front, wrap your yarn, pull it through. And then don't forget to transfer that loop. I didn't tell you the first time, but transfer the worked loop to your right needle so that it's worked and you can knit on. So slip your marker or place your marker for the first time. And we are going to knit two together. And if you do this a lot, your finger is going to hurt. So if you find yourself being a pusher, which a lot of people are in the very beginning, I recommend just putting a Band-Aid on before you even poke yourself. So we're going to knit two together. I still poke myself, so. And after we knit two together, we're going to knit three. So we have increase twice. Here's our KFB. I bet you're a pro at this by now. Knit front. Your first row is going to be the most daunting. It's going to be the most challenging because casting on tends to be a lot tighter, and those KFBs are harder to work. Knit front. Don't slip it off yet. Knit back. After your two increases, we knit four. Oh man, and these knitting, the knitting, it's so relaxing. So when you get those 4 stitches knit, let's just say you accidentally aren't paying attention and you knit a 5th one, and then you come to a decrease and you're like, oh no, I only have 1 stitch. Well, what do I do now? How do I go backward? So you need to tink, which spelling and actual physical knitting, it's knit backward. You pull your yarn and you open up that hole and you just go behind that stitch that you just worked and you switch it to the other needle and pull that yarn out. I'm going to show you this again. Pull down on your knitting, open that hole, go through, pull it off. This is tinking. This is a very necessary skill that you are going to want to have in your toolbox. Oh, you know what? I lied. So, yeah, I totally lied to you. I tinked the wrong way because I'm a lefty. So what happens when you tink the wrong way? You twist the legs of your stitches. So now if you don't knit through the back loop, see how this stitch right here that is knit, this bar right here that's between the stitches, and this leg right here are what's sitting next to one another in that nice loop. Well, if you went ahead and knit like usual, you'll feel that it's tighter, and the end result will be a twisted stitch. Do you see how that's twisted right there? You get an X instead, and if you pull on the work, it actually gets tighter. No good. I mean, it's not terrible. Sometimes you want a twisted stitch, but not right now. So you can either switch it from needle to needle and correct it that way so that you can work it, or you can just work through the back loop like this. And again, here we are in the same situation. I've got a tank back. For you, go through the top of that loop that you've stretched out. In order to go back through the top of the loop to tank. So now we're going to just go ahead and do the last decrease, which is slip, slip. And if it helps you to get your needle in there, pull this down while holding, I'm counter pressuring with my ring finger here, pushing the needle upward. I am pulling with my middle finger and my thumb down on my knitting and putting the needle through. And that's the last one. Let's see. I did this wrong last time. I don't know how to slip this last one for whatever reason. Okay, so we're gonna look at the work. Oh my goodness, after your second row, I love this pattern. I am so thankful you chose this pattern. This is so cool. All right, let me know if you have any more problems. I think you're going to get such a great start and you're going to enjoy this pattern. Happy knitting!